We can start properly.
Welcome to Let's Be
Tell
Frank.
us. Yes. Why are we talking about death today?
Let's be frank about death. I don't know. It
Yes.
it popped into my head, and uh it's a topic I would say struggled with throughout my life. Um, I've never had a very good relationship with death, and I've always been afraid of dying, like absolutely terrified of dying. And I think that that was always because of the fear of the unknown, that there's just no one can tell you what happens when you die. Um,
Mm.
so I think that's a huge part of it for me. And then I think I've been confronted with death in various forms throughout my life. Maybe one of the most significant ones was one that you know about, where someone died in my presence, which was
Yeah.
quite a monumental moment. As one minute he was there, the next minute he wasn't.
Yeah.
And he was a huge personality, and it was just seeing like the contrast between this big personality that was there one minute and gone the next.
Mm.
And I don't know. I think what I said to you, which is how we got on this topic, was that I've become more comfortable with the concept of death.
Mm.
um, and maybe it's all of these little things that have added up that have gotten me to a point where it just is, and maybe some of my own learnings throughout the years with stoicism and with these types of conversations, and with what we can control and what we can't control, and just coming to terms with the fact that death is part of life, and everyone is going to die. I'm going to die at some point, and you just kind of have to be comfortable with it, because you have I don't want to say no control over it, because something we've spoken about a few times is about extending our life or being healthy enough to live a longer life. There are
Mm.
things we can control around it, but the inevitability is that we are all going to die sooner or later. So you have to be okay with death.
Yeah. What's the old saying? Death and taxes, the only
Yeah.
two things that you can be sure about. So, so I wonder kind of what caused that shift? Because I mean, the experience that you described, and having to deal with death right there. I mean, that's something that happened quite some time ago. Um, no other real revelations or change in the way that you think about the world, etc., etc. So there wasn't any other significant event that got you to this point where I'm actually a bit more comfortable with the whole concept now.
Maybe just aging, just getting older, just experiencing
Yeah,
more of life, meeting more people, getting definitely for me, getting more comfortable in my own skin and more confident. And I think that maybe has something to do with it.
yes, yes. I think that is probably a, a significant or more
Yeah.
important contribution to how you feel about it now. Um, the uncertainty about what happens afterward, is that something that you've thought about recently, or that could also have changed your mind about how you feel?
Um, Possibly. One of the things I think about is people talk about, you go to sleep and you wake up and you don't remember those hours. And maybe something else that's changed in my life is I've become a better sleeper. For many years, I was a terrible sleeper, very light sleeper. I never felt rested when I woke up. So maybe that's also something, is like, now I really enjoy sleep. I love closing my eyes, going to sleep and waking up, and those hours have passed and I'm fine with
Okay.
it. So I don't know if there
Yeah.
maybe is also something like that. Um, I think part of it is being comfortable with discomfort in my life and going with the flow and taking each day as it comes and finding things to enjoy. It's almost like whatever it is afterwards, I'll just deal with it then.
Yeah, it's good that you mentioned that because I was going to ask, in terms of I don't know, we've talked in the past about things like purpose and that sort of thing, and kind of being on that quest of finding your purpose and so on. And I wonder if things like that, where you feel like I haven't really figured out what I want to do and how I want to do it and how much I want to do of it. If things like that also contribute um, to how one kind of views or feels about death. Um, it's it really seems like there's a number of things that kind of contribute to
Yeah.
um, because, like you said, a fact that you have never been under any illusion is that it's part of life. Dying is part
Yeah.
of life, um, and approximately 150,000 people die every day worldwide, which is
Yeah.
it's a huge number. When and I don't think that that even includes things like wars and natural disasters and other sorts of factors that can influence it. That's just the natural for roughly 8 billion people, the number of people that expire every day.
Do you know how
Um,
many people are born every day? I know I'm throwing a spanner in the works there, but I'm just curious if it like, because isn't it, it's
no,
more
I
people are born
don't.
than die, and that's kind of one of our issues is that we are overpopulating the planet.
No, 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 no,
Okay.
no, no, no. We actually on the opposite side of the spectrum there.
Okay. Not enough people
Um,
are having children.
not enough people, yeah, are
Guilty.
born to yeah, not a lot of not enough people are born to replace.
Yeah.
How many people are
Are you asking
okay?
Google or
Let's
ChatGPT?
no, no, no. I'm asking ChatGPT. 385,000 babies are born each day around the world.
Oh, that's
So
more than the number of people that die each
yes,
day.
yes, yes, yes. But infant mortality rate,
Okay.
um, depending on where you are in the world, infant mortality rate has come down significantly over the last 50 to 100 years, obviously. Um, but yeah, look, every, I mean, every country in the world seems, well, no, no, not every
Mhm.
country in the world. Most European countries or Western countries
Mhm.
have a population problem. So Japan, we know very much not enough young people to come into the system to help pay for the older people, and also they live long. The
Yeah.
same is happening in, well, China sits with a population problem, um, largely because of the one-child policy that they had for a few decades. Um, Actually, South Korea has got a major problem as well. Um, People are not getting married and having children. Italy, Germany, France. I'm not sure what the stats are like in the UK. The US, same thing. Canada, definitely same thing. Um, anyway, so even though more people may be born at the moment, the people live longer because I think I have it here. Um, Average age of death worldwide, so obviously a very broad number here, 72.6 years.
Yeah.
So in high income countries, it is definitely higher. It is 80 plus years. And then obviously low income countries, 60 to 65. But I think those numbers have also increased dramatically.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, I remember um, in a book I am listening to at the moment, it was quoted that during the height of Robert Mugabe's reign in Zimbabwe, um, average lifespan of males, I think, was 30 or 35. So you get those anomalies as well,
Yeah.
where there are factors that kind of influence that. Anyway, we got a little bit sidetracked here. We're talking about, um, but anyway, it's a hell of a lot of people that expire every day.
Yeah.
We are
I like
pretty
that term, by
fortunate.
the way. Expire.
Expire just sounds a little bit better than buy.
Well, it sounds like your food.
Yes,
You have an expiry date.
yes, which is exactly how I feel about people thinking about retirement.
Mhm.
It's like you kind of reach your
Shelf
sell
life.
by date, yeah, shelf life. Um, sell before and eat
Yeah.
before. Anyway, another interesting thing well, it's interesting to me, is how many people have actually been on this little planet. At the moment, we sit with 8 billion, roughly 8 billion. Um, that's another thing is census figures. I mean, these are all just
Rough.
reasonably, yeah, reasonably rough guesses. So we think there are about 8 billion people on the planet. So you know, if we out by 10%, it could be closer to 9 billion,
Mhm.
or it could also be closer to 7 billion. I don't know.
Yeah.
Does a billion make a huge difference? Anyway, the what what I thought about is how many people in total have been on the face of the planet since Adam and Eve. And I would never even have guessed the number to be between 108 and 120 billion people
What
have
would you
lived
have
and died
would you have thought it
throughout
was much
human
lower?
history. I would have thought it was much lower.
Interesting. I mean, I can't even fathom a billion. I can't like picture a
Yeah, yeah.
billion people in my head. So,
Well,
yeah.
it's all of India. Well, 80% of India or uh,
Yeah.
70% of China. But yeah, you're right. I mean, these are huge numbers. And then when I started thinking about this in terms of why would my estimate have been so much lower? Because if you think about it, from I don't know, you read the Bible, Adam and Eve, and then they had two sons, and whoops, there was the first murder. I
Yeah.
mean, very early in the story, and throughout that history, there is war and death and mayhem and etc. And that has kind of continued. So
Yeah.
when I think about it through that lens of how much of that there was, then that number starts to make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, so just getting back to your views on death, and um, do you do you think that when you encounter death again, in other words, the death of um, a friend, a relative, a whatever, that you will think about it differently, and or that you will process it differently to the way that you processed it before?
I feel like I would. It's very hard to say, uh, but I do feel like, without sounding uncaring, I feel like I would accept it as part of life. I feel like I would just accept that it's something that happened and
Yeah,
not
yeah.
like a big emotional event. But I mean,
No, it
it's
will still
hard to
be a big
say.
emotional.
Yeah.
No, no, no. It will still be a very big
Yeah.
emotional event if it is somebody very close to you.
Yes.
That is. I'm not for 1 minute thinking that you will not be emotional and you'll just
No.
shrug your shoulders and go, "Oh well, it's part of life. Let's move on." But in terms of the kind of the actual processing, there's a difference in my mind between grieving, which is part of the process and um, also a natural thing to do, um, and the the I don't know, I want to call it the state of being upset by the act of death.
Yeah.
Which I think those two things are separate, and you'll you'll still grieve, but you won't have all of these other um, feelings and emotions that go with the kind of how you felt about death
Yeah. Yeah.
before.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it. I think it probably also depends on how close the person is, how frequently you engage with them.
Yeah.
Um, so something that might have also contributed to me getting more comfortable is the fact that I moved away from family and friends um many years ago. So a lot of my relationships with people have become a bit more distant. Even the people that I care about very deeply are not uh in my life every single minute of every single day. Um, so I don't know if that's also having some kind of physical distance between people that I consider very special and close to me might also have something to do with it.
Mm, I wonder.
It is hard to say though, because
I,
I mean I haven't
I,
had like a an experience since I think the last person that I felt was someone that was impactful in my life that died. I was already quite comfortable with it. Was someone that died during COVID who I hadn't seen in many years, but I still considered a close person.
mm,
Um, yeah. So it's hard to tell. I dealt with that a lot better than I did any previous deaths, but it's also someone I hadn't seen in a long time.
correct. Yeah. Yeah. But they say absence make the heart grow fonder. Mm, I don't know. I, I honestly don't know if that'll be the case. Um, I do generally think, I mean, one of the things that you mentioned, you said, I'm a little bit older now. I've had more life experience. I think is probably more correct in terms
Hmm.
of, and not just in terms of years, but you have more life experience. I do think one starts to think or view death a little bit different.
Yeah.
I'm trying to I'm trying to think back in experiences that I have had, whether uh, a more recent experience or an experience from 20 years ago were different.
Yeah. I was going to ask you actually, what's your relationship with death? How do you feel about it?
I try to avoid it at all costs.
Your own or
uh,
others? Both.
well, both. But yeah, look, I'm pretty much of it, it is unavoidable. We all are going to die. Um, I suppose the circumstances.
Hmm.
Things that really upset me is young people, children that are killed for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Obviously, somebody that has had a long life and um, I don't know, has been through, I don't know, a long, prolonged illness and so on. It's almost there's a sense of relief
Mm-hmm.
when it's finally, especially when there's suffering involved.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it obviously affects you. It does affect me when somebody that I care for die. But not in a way that I cannot cope with it
Yeah.
or don't know how to process it. I do think it's really important to get that concept of well, life goes on as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So grieve and people have different ways in which they grieve, and that's fine. But I think it's important to grieve and then also be done with it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and understand that, and this is something that you also pointed out earlier in terms of maybe understanding the importance of being present and living in the now, and you know, finite time here on the planet, and life is short, and all of these things that
Yeah.
we kind of know. But what I mean by grieve and be done with it is like, okay, cool. Just always keep that reality of my time here is also limited.
Yeah.
And as much as I am going to do whatever I can to extend it for as long as I can, um, I understand that each and every one of these little bits of time, a, a day, a month, a year, however you want to look at it, um, is kind of valuable, and
Yeah.
that we must also kind of do whatever we can with that time.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I don't feel like I explained myself very well there in terms of my relationship with death.
It's a complicated relationship to explain, to put into words.
Yeah, yeah,
um, I think it's also what you said about, living your life, knowing that your time is short, is also making sure that the people that you care about know that you care about them, and because something can happen at any minute, anytime.
yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. I wonder if that's also maybe something that just in general make people not have a healthy relationship with death is because they don't have that really healthy relationship with life
Yeah.
in terms of how they, conduct themselves and people that they care about. That's a very good point. Um,
So maybe that's something for me. I'm just figuring it out as I go along, is I've also
yeah,
gotten
yeah,
more comfortable with being quite honest with people and saying what I think and what I feel. And I don't feel like anything would be left unsaid if I don't feel like anyone would be wondering about how I felt about them.
yeah. That's yeah. I think that's obviously a very healthy kind of space to be in.
Yeah.
I just have to make a note for myself here. I have to think about this thing about who do I have to tell what.
I like those kind of um those questions, like, if you knew you were going to die next week, what would you spend your time on, or what would you be doing?
Do you like those questions?
I mean, I don't
I
love them
mean,
because I don't think I would actually do them.
we encountered a few of those in the Save Wisdom
Yeah.
um, yeah, I
It's
also,
good for just thinking. I don't think I would actually go and suddenly start writing letters to everyone or whatever, but it's good
mm,
to think about where your priorities would lie if you were faced with that reality that you've got a week to live. Like, what would I do 80 differently to what I'm doing now? Where would I put my energy or
well, first of all, I don't think, maybe I just haven't tried hard enough, but I don't think you can actually put yourself in that position
yeah,
to think that you actually only have until next week this time. And maybe in my case, maybe that's a bit of a blessing because I think I'll just go nuts. I think it must be one of the most difficult things to deal with is to be at that point where you really understand. Listen, I'm not talking about months or I'm talking about days
yeah.
till you expire. I think that is probably one of the worst things to deal with. And that's why I think that these questions don't really make sense. And I understand the reason why you are sometimes prompted, and generally it's in a case of trying to get you to live your life.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think it will be. I don't think I can put myself in that position. But I do think I can figure out who do I have to tell what in the
Yeah.
meantime, even though it's hopefully this expiry date is far in the future. Do you feel like you is it a one off thing here that you can tell somebody, "Hi, listen, I quite like you," and then that's that, or do you feel like it's something that has to be revisited quite often, or
I think it's more than words. um,
okay?
to show people that you care about them. So I'm just trying to think of practical examples. As I mentioned, I live far away from most of my family and I have for a very long time. So I I could sometimes go 2 or 3 weeks or maybe even longer without talking to my mom and dad just because life happens and you
Mm-hmm.
don't realize it. Um, but I'm very conscious of the fact that when I phone them because I really enjoy talking to them. I really want to have these
Mm.
conversations. We talk about everything, we cover all the topics. And if I am walking in the neighborhood and I see a flower that reminds me of my mom, I'll take a photo and I'll send it to her. And so that's where I say I don't think there's any doubt in my parents' minds how much I care about them, even though
Yes.
I can go 3 weeks sometimes without talking to them. So I don't
Mm.
think it's I don't need to write them a letter now and say if I die tomorrow, this is how I feel about you.
Yeah. Yeah.
um because I think they know. Well, I
Okay.
hope that they know, and if they don't, maybe my mom will watch this podcast and
No,
know.
sure. No, sure. But what about that? What about the flip side of that? In other words, what about that person that, I don't know, I think I'm kind of going in two directions here. But the one thing I'm thinking about is people that are not necessarily close family, close, but people that you have shared a lot of experiences with, that sort of thing. So let's put them in the friends kind of
Hmm.
category. But I think it's a little bit wider than that as well for me. I don't know. I'm trying to make sense of things here that which you just made me think about here on very short notice. So I'm more trying to just organize my thoughts here. Um, I think generally maybe I'm just talking from my own perspective, but generally pretty shit at that
Mm-hmm.
in terms of people that mean something to you. Um, I don't know. Is it necessary? I I don't know. We're going to have to revisit this one because I have quite a bit of thinking to do around this. I do have a feeling that there are people maybe that I owe something. It,
I'm
and maybe
thinking about what you're saying at the same time. That's why I'm quiet. I'm not I'm not trying to get you to talk your way into an answer. I'm just also thinking.
yeah, who do I have to tell? Okay, cool. I'm gonna think about that one for a bit. Um, it's funny how talking about death get us right back into the important things of living.
Yeah, that's one of the things, isn't it? Death makes you very aware of your life. Any kind of death experience makes you, even if
Mm,
you have a near death experience, or I nearly got hit by a
yeah,
bus once, and I thought, oh, I'm actually really grateful that I didn't get hit by that bus. I'm quite happy to be alive, and I've got a lot of things I still want to do.
yeah. I wonder if that. No, I'm sorry. I start wondering before I start talking before I actually had a chance to think about this. But I do know there are people who are at a point where they go, look, I'm ready. Can I just go now? But those
Yeah,
are generally people that have, suffered quite a bit
yeah.
from whatever illness and so on.
Or
Anyway, this
they've
is,
or they've lived a long and fulfilled life, and they feel like they can go. I see that with my grandmother, who she's 97, and when she starts having health issues, she says, "No, I don't want to be tested. I just want to. I'm ready to go." And she's had a
yeah.
wonderful, fulfilled life. She's got 6 kids and a million grandchildren, and
Mm.
yeah, I think that maybe age can also get you to that point where you feel,
I don't think it's age by itself. I think it is you losing the ability to.
yeah, to continue living in the same way you have lived.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's true.
So that for some people happen at at a relatively young age. But I mean, all of it is related to health, I
Hmm.
think.
Which
Anyway,
then brings us full circle back to our lifestyle and exercise and
yeah,
diet and
correct, correct. Do the right things. Do the right things. Um, I'm really so optimistic about the future,
yeah.
despite the fact that I think that we are busy screwing things up and we are in for some really bad times. I am really optimistic about the future, and it is so important to do what you can to make sure that everyone as an individual can be part of that future, and that's why I do a lot of these things that I do.
Yeah. That's a very positive note to end on for a podcast that I thought was going to be a bit morbid and negative. So I feel like
Yeah,
actually our death podcast has been one of our more positive ones.
yeah, true. Yeah,
The irony.
damn. And now you've got me thinking about this notion of, and definitely something that I want to explore um, in the future, in terms of what are the correct ways to make sure you that people know how you feel about them. And it may sound like I'm overcomplicating a relatively simple thing,
Mhm.
but in my mind, I'm not. let me think about it and articulate my thoughts.
I look forward to the recap.
Thanks, Ellie.
Thanks, Herman.